So I'll record it as well. I think it is recording it. Um, I've been, anyway, greetings, anyone. Anyway, I'm flustered because I have lots of people asking if I can send them money for their data and costs and things. And actually, I can't. I'm not able to today this week, so I'm having to send lots of apologies. So we'll do this. We'll do the session, and we'll record it and share it. And so it's great to have you here. And I think you said you saw a bit of you saw the recording from last week, Ella. Tell us a little bit about your PhD. So that was interesting to me to say it was very relevant. And tell us a bit more about what you're doing and how that resonates with it. I'd be really interested to hear.
Yeah, sure. So, my PhD, well, also I loved the session. I found it very interesting. And so my PhD is based on using permaculture within an organization. Um, but it's at two levels. So one of them is at the organizational level to create strategies, but having the permaculture ethics at the beginning, not at the beginning, at the center, sorry, so
Yes.
that every decision that's made within the organization takes into account the ethics, and it uses the principles as a strategy and as a structure to think of new possibilities, of new options, of everything like this. So I felt this was very aligned with what you were saying. And the second part, which I think is probably the nicer part of my PhD, is it's looking at how permaculture can inspire hope in people, by opening up different possibilities and different ideas, and I suppose looking at what actually is possible by using, I mean, we're not using so much materials. It's not so much the agricultural focus. It's more looking at businesses, but looking at what are all of the options. And I
Mm.
find that this gives people hope because they think, oh, actually, there is something that we can do, um, at least within their business. This is what people have found. So, yeah, these were the two sides. So it was a lot of the things that you were talking about, the ethic. I'm writing up my findings at the moment. And one of the main things has been about this, about having this ethical mindset when you're creating strategies for business. So, yeah, that
That's really
that's what I'm
interesting.
doing. And especially, go on, sorry.
I was going to thank you for that and say sorry to put you on the spot, but I guess if you're doing a PhD, they're going to ask you to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But so
I
yeah, I
think
loved it. I found it very, very interesting.
great. Well, I'll pick up on a lot of those themes again today, and um, I mean, yes, so something I think a lot about is we need a basis for collaboration, and if we're not sort of on the same page as each other, because I see the ethics as like a
Mm,
long-term steering mechanism. So we could think
yeah.
about how do we get to a very distant destination, and we've got a sort of steering mechanism as to try and stay within the Earth Care, People Care, Fair Share, framework, and that obviously everything that we do is nuanced and nothing's ever perfect. So, this
Mm,
we're always having to sort of there are trade-offs. I think that
yeah.
when you have a values-based sort of system, if you're not careful, it then becomes something that you trip up over all the time. So it's like, oh, but you went there on a
Mm.
aeroplane, or oh, you ate this, or you went there, or you said the wrong word, or there's so many ways which we can trip ourselves up. Um, and so for me, I think it's very important that permaculture really recognizes this. We're not saying we're perfect. What we're saying is
Mm.
we're trying, we're moving in a particular direction, that it's not an absolute. So
Yeah.
I think that this what I'm looking for in terms of a buy-in from other people is that they're committed to moving in the same direction and modifying and, if you like, trimming the sails, if you like, to try and navigate through what is a really complex, reality. Reality is really complex. And I'm not sure. I mean, this is a slight deviation, but and it's something obviously is weighing very heavily, probably on all of us right now, is the awareness of this utter horror of what is happening in Palestine, utter horror of that, and go, well, I mean, or even last week I talked a little about the Paris Climate Agreement, and again but so where's the leadership? How does leadership even fit? Because clearly there are forces at work which are more powerful than we are, you know, and yet we can't. I don't know. I mean, we can't. These big global events that are happening are beyond our control. But what we do have control of is, if you like, is the bottom up bit. Is the world that starts from ourselves. So I started to think in terms of leadership, and in permaculture is, well, there's kind of top down leadership. There's governments, and governments that talk to the World Food Programme or the United Nations, and it triggers the UNHCR perhaps to, sort of how if there's any kind of disruption in the supply chain, we're moving into a time of great uncertainty, and we can see there is political turmoil, there's conflict, there's refugees, there's climate related events, and to a large extent, where's the leadership coming from globally to respond to these things? Whereas, as communities, what the best that we can do really is to organize ourselves from the bottom up, and to start thinking about. So, if we wait for governments and powerful institutions to say we're going to solve, the climate problem or a conflict situation is, the chances are that we'll feel that we're having solutions imposed on us. And no one, I think there's something that a lot of people don't like about the idea of the whole climate agenda is we're going to be told what to do, by governments and, large forces say you can't do that or you have to do this way. And the big solutions that are, if you like, imposed from above, they don't speak to the locality. They don't speak to the individual people, the place, the climate, the existing infrastructure. It doesn't. It's like how does the top down stuff plug into the existing communities? So I think that the more that we think about organization on a community basis, on a kind of a bottom up basis, then actually we're better enabled for other external institutions to come along and offer us help, or for us to access whatever resources that might be there from, say, from nation states or big NGOs and things like that. So I think within the context of that, very, very interesting, the permaculture approach to organization. So I'm going to get up. I can find my. Sorry. The share screen. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen now.
It's just coming, I think. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, my internet, I've had to go upstairs. The internet isn't quite so good up here. So these are the slides that we went through last week, and I think we went through the principles. Let me say it right. Yes, and we did these. So, So these are some notes I made before, so I'll go back to them. The 12 principles of permaculture offer us insights that go beyond their design and agricultural origins. And they go into the realm of leadership and life of itself and life itself. What you were saying, Ella, in terms of your studies, it's very interesting to think about how these permaculture principles abstract and how we can kind of apply them to anything, or it can help us. It's a framework with which to consider many different things. How we approach decision making and leadership, and then I think this thing about how we come together as a team, how we come together, because if we've got to solve complex problems, we need to have a common ideology, a common methodology about how we're going to go about that. And I think that the danger is that we all start pulling and pushing in different directions. We're always looking for people to blame as things go wrong, where in fact what we need to do is to think about what that means to us and how we respond to it. So, very much the permaculture principles driven by this idea of principle 12, which is that things are always changing. And that one constant that we have actually is change. And therefore, we need to observe and interact, accept new information, be ready to sort of work with that. And then, and as a general strategy, what we're trying to do is to set up systems that catch and store energy. Why are we doing that? Because we need to build yields that fulfill needs, and to do that in a way in which we start to build, we understand that what we're actually doing is building interconnected systems. So there's a lot there for people to work with and to sort of potentially agree about. Let's just see what else we got. So, and I think I touched on this last week as well, but in the face of injustice, it's tempting to scream revolution and hope for overnight changes to set things right. However, genuine revolution is only seen in hindsight and is produced by countless small efforts over time. Even if at first glance it seems like there was one catalytic event that tipped the scale. Slow solutions are equally important if the changes we seek to bring about are to have genuine buy-in from everyone around us. Okay, someone has their mic on.
Faith, would you please mute? Faith? Steve?
Oh, yeah. It's okay. Thanks. Sorry, yes, whoops. Yeah, okay, that's it. We got it. Thank you, Faith. You're welcome to contribute, but just keep your mic off when you're not. The way to solve problems is to get everybody engaged. I think this is the next part of what we're trying to achieve in permaculture leadership. Is we're trying to not lead. We're trying to empower those around us to take responsibility. Now, if you remember, when we think about permaculture design, we design to fulfill functions. We're always pushed back to the principle of it. The question is, what problems are we trying to solve? What function are we trying to fulfill? And to keep reminding ourselves and checking that any strategies that we have in place actually are addressing the function that we're trying to fulfill. And so we're not having meetings for the sake of having meetings. We're not setting up groups for the sake of setting up groups. We keep asking ourselves, what is the function that we're trying to fulfill? And I think this is an interesting way in which how permaculture responds to how what permaculture might leadership might look like. Ella.
Sorry, yeah, I just wanted to say that very quickly because this is exactly what I've seen in my findings. That if you could just the other slide that you mentioned, this is what one of someone that was working in a company said to me. That which one was it?
Was it this one?
Yeah, I think well, it was the small and slow change, small, slow solutions. This is what everyone was saying. We're like, oh yeah, this is what, that actually by making really small steps, we can lead to really big changes. That at the beginning might seem impossible and we think, oh, we can't achieve that. But even just by doing little things at a time, they were like, oh, we can achieve that. And there was something else as well, but now it's gone out of my mind. I'll put it in the chat if I remember.
Sure, no, it's a really good point. And I think that how we solve climate change is by challenging everyone, literally everyone, to use a permaculture framework to set in motion small and slow solutions. And your approach or anyone else's approach is by very definition, it's going to be individual. And you're going to look at the things around you and see the challenges that you face or your family, your community, your household, and address that. And in the process, you learn because you're observing and interacting. And suddenly those things start to join together. And I think this is the only way. So we always tend to leave it to the last minute before we try and fix things. And boy, have we done that with the sort of climate and ecological problem. But I think there's a sort of a growing up that comes with it. Like the younger generations now are really taking on board that they're growing into a world that's going to be profoundly different from the one that we had for various reasons, and we're looking for leadership within that. So let's go back to small and slow solutions. And again, is because we're trying to attack such a big thing. We're trying to address such a huge and all-encompassing problem, and we don't know what. There is no single solution. There is no single answer. It's the uniqueness and the attention to detail that comes if we all respond from within our own circumstance. Okay, so 9 leadership tactics. Learn from other leaders. Look to the people around you from the past, from people from your own community. Think about teachers, think about people that you've interacted with that you found it inspiring, and think about why. Work to build skills. Believe that you are a leader. I think we touched on this last week, is even if you're just a leader of one, leading yourself, but someone has to take the initiative. And in permaculture, we're saying is we have to take on a degree of responsibility to create and push forward the changes that we want to make. So believe that you're a leader. Take up more tasks. Share your ideas. Listen to others. It's never weakness to take on board more information and to improve your ideas. And by sharing and listening, this is like an observe and interact. It's how we learn. Learn how to delegate. That's a difficult one, something which I have to really work on. If you delegate, you pass on a task to someone else. Hey, Gerald, I'd like you to do this. But it's still if it was my responsibility, it's still my responsibility. And looking to Gerald, did you manage to do that task? Did you achieve it? Did it go to plan? Thank you very much. So I get that feedback. That's delegation. But that's how you can become effective as an individual and how you can empower those people around you to also take action, meaningful action. Treat other leaders with respect. Know that there are many different types of leaders and different types of leadership. So we're not all trying to be the same. We want to learn from other people, build our skills, build confidence in yourself, take the initiative, be strong enough and open enough to share ideas and to listen to other people, and also to share that responsibility by delegation. These are really, really key thoughts, ideas, I thought. So I came across these ideas as a kind of an older model. I tried to think what it really meant by this. So it's saying move away from these old models of maybe socializing the problem. Okay, climate change, it's everyone's responsibility. I think that's what it means by socializing. It's down to you to reduce your carbon footprint, all you naughty kids. Well, clearly we need coordination on that. I think just putting out putting the responsibility onto everybody doesn't help. The next thing to avoid is just focusing on the problem. As we say very strongly within permaculture, that we're using design to turn problems into solutions. We talk a lot about how it's very important that our design strategies address and resolve problems, not the symptoms of the problem. And it's very kind of a negative way of going about things is if we just talk about, oh, we've got climate change as a problem, climate, too much, the wrong kind of energy, we're just focusing on the problem, and we're saying it's up to everybody, everyone to solve it. But the third thing that we see very much in the outside world, and something perhaps we also need to push to change, is social excuse. So again, I hope I'm interpreting this right, but this is how I saw it. Exclusory social institutions. So that you have to jump over a bar to be able to join. You're not clever enough. You're not a member. You're the wrong tribe. You're the wrong gender. You're the wrong religion. You don't have enough O-levels. You didn't pay your fees. These are all ways in which we exclude people from social institutions. We need inclusive social institutions. We want to draw the participation and involvement in from as many people as possible. So as a contrast to this, rather than focusing on problems, we're focusing on redesign. We're focusing on strategies that then turn those problems into solutions. We want participatory social institutions with no barriers. Please come along and take part. We'll introduce you and show you how to take part. Rather than having this, rather than pushing general responsibility onto everyone, we want to be enabling. We want to actually show people how to take part, how to be part of the redesign, and how to join in and be part of our inclusive, participatory social institutions. I'll come back to that. Okay, let's go. So, how are we going to work together effectively? Like, I don't know the answers. As I'm working through this presentation, and as I'm going through these sessions with you, I'm asking myself the question: is we're not Superman. I'm not Superman. Sector 39 are not sat on a big pile of money and we can fund your projects. Far from it. We're struggling to survive ourselves. I'm just trying to take the initiative and ask the question is, how are we going to work together effectively? So rather than perhaps say looking to anyone, whether to us or anyone else, to expect them to give you money, the question is more to think about, how do we work together to build a common vision, to create a story, to create a something that is worthy of funding and that may attract funding. So rather than asking for permission to do something, can you give me some money so I can do something? Instead, we're coming together to create something that is actually investment worthy. That's, I think, a positive, inclusive way to work around the limitations. So for us to work together, we need a clear vision and a clear commitment to permaculture values, and we're not tripping each other up. We're not saying, oh, you can't join because you're not good enough. What we're saying is, to work together effectively, you need an ongoing commitment to the ethics of permaculture, because that's what works. I think that through permaculture, as Sector 39, we have a long-term goal of creating a mutual support network, and to be able to continue these kinds of conversations. And I really hope that but through doing this, we can find ways which we can together win resources to support our work. But I think that it comes through being networked. We need measurable outputs that meet the needs that we ourselves have defined. That's what I mean by the stakeholders. If we're creating a network, what are we doing it for? Why are we doing this? And we need to know in some ways whether we're actually achieving what we've set, what we're setting out to achieve. And to do that, we need, I guess, smart objectives, isn't it? They talk about measurable, strategic, measurable. I'm trying to think what I said. Anyway, and whatever we set in motion, our mutual support network it needs to be able to learn and to evolve very quickly, as we move now into this phase of, because I think it very much is that we are enablers. As leaders, our responsibility is to enable the people around us to take part, to see the opportunity to redesign, to address problems and turn them into solutions. And to enable us to do this, we need to be able to draw in the participation of other people, and we need to be able to set up social institutions, whatever that is, any kind of group or gathering, that challenges people to take part. So so I picked out these as being the key considerations, perhaps, for how we are going to work together. We're going to build a common vision that other people will want to support, and we need to be able to communicate that very well. We need to remain focused on our permaculture values, and we actually need to have clear outputs that we're trying to achieve, that we can measure. And whatever it is that we're setting in motion, we have to understand that it needs to learn and evolve very quickly, which means that we need very good two-way communications. Now, in chapter 14 of the Permaculture Designer's Manual, it's only a small bit of it, and on the theme of bioregional organisation, and I touched on this on the PDC last year, and I've come back to it because I think it could, in some ways, be the most important bit, but the most important bit of the whole book, as it gives us a sense of how we might come together and organise our bottom-up strategies. So I don't want to be all kind of doom and gloom, but let's just say we're all struggling, and in whatever way, the world is changing, economics are challenging, let alone the climate, weather events, and so forth, happening around us. So these nine, I think we've got 9 things here. Let's see each one of these as a function. This is a function of what community does. And if we are to take a greater degree of control for ourselves as individuals, for our neighbours and family and community around us, and wider, nation states, we need to build strategies that help support these key 9 functions. This is to say from the Permaculture Designer's Manual. And the first one, I think there's an order to them, an order of priority. But for long-term survival, you need to address all 9. Is we need to understand that food and nutrition is a function that happens within community, happens within family, happens within community. It also happens in the financialized world. We can just go and buy food. But if we were to experience any kind of disruption, our own income stream might be disrupted, so it's harder to buy food. Food might not be available because the supply lines might have been damaged, and whatever other problems we might imagine. So we need to, and the idea that, so here's a theme within permaculture is people might be mistaken to think that permaculture is about being self-sufficient. It's about not needing anyone else, going completely off-grid, growing your own food, providing your own energy, and so forth. And actually, we would argue that's not a very wise thing to do, because we are all interdependent, and not one person can do everything. And even if you are able to do everything for yourself, what happens if you get sick? What happens if you fall over and break your leg or something like that? We need to work in teams, and we need to come together in teams with a sense of strategy and say, okay, we have these things in common. We have a permaculture ethics and principles in common as our sort of framework. And the first area that we're going to look at is, what can we do to reinforce the function of food in our community? So let's go. We'll go through the 9, and then we'll explore 1 or 2 in a bit more detail and think about how that might work. So food's pretty essential. Life's not much fun without food. We know we need shelter. Houses need funding. They cost money. They need to be maintained. There's a whole skill set. There's tools. There's knowledge. There's skills involved in building, maintaining houses to be effective. So that's another function that happens within community. We all need livelihoods, so we need more than just food. And we need access to work or opportunities, and we could think about how that might come about, how we might support that function on a community level. There's a social dynamic. Let me think about how would a network recruit new members? What kind of activities might they do to inform other people of opportunities to be achieved by working together bioregionally? So that would be a social function. Health. We need access to health and healthcare. Now, if you have a serious thing wrong with you, you need to go to hospital, and that costs a lot of money. Maybe communities can come together and find creative ways to make that more affordable. I don't know. But maybe within communities, there is a lot of knowledge between the members about looking after babies, or looking after older people, or people in long-term convalescence. These are things that we have the skills to do. There's a lot of knowledge maybe of traditional medicines, of using herbs or other kinds of preparations, that knowledge might be within our community. So we're not saying that we can do without doctors and hospitals, but maybe we can support the function of health better by having a strategy in place and by having a group of people who think about that thing. Transport's a very difficult thing to solve as an individual, but maybe as a community with plans and strategies, we can share and maintain bicycles and mopeds and have access to other vehicles. Information is such an important part, and that might work a bit with the social consideration, is if you don't know what to do or where to go, there should be somewhere for you to direct your questions. That information needs to be available, and perhaps the function of informing might be also part of where the leadership of the bioregional organization comes from. Decision makings and strategies, sharing knowledge and information, keeping a records of decisions that have been made and achievements. That needs to have somewhere to go, perhaps. Then that's a resource and of value for the network itself. So some aspect of thinking about caring for the community, of security, think about the dangers of fires or non-cooperative people. Again, something which you might need a group of people who consider that and come up with ideas to support that function. And then the final of the 9 areas of a bioregional organization is a group of people who think about future trends and threats. So a lot of these is to do with the present and maybe sort of planning a little bit further ahead, but also is we need to pay attention to long-term structural changes or threats and have a sense of how we're going to deal with that. So interesting. So we've got 9 headings. Now this spider diagram is part of a graphic that was produced by a permaculture student in Australia. I've forgotten his name. But it's whoops. Oh, sorry, I'll go back to that. I was trying to, and I did make copies of this available before. So let's see. Okay. So here's the sort of, it's the same information but put in a big spider diagram, but then with a breakdown of each function. So this is what we're doing. We're trying to organize ourselves on a regional basis. What does it mean by bioregional? That's an interesting term as well. I think what a bioregion is, sometimes national boundaries and things like that go along rivers, or where perhaps they should be more on the watersheds, the water catchment, to think about how a region functions biologically, not just in terms of the human organization. Anyway, so look. Here's food. Here's how we might want to think about food. So I think I can go up to that, and I've got food as a breakout here. So so the suggestion is to slowly build resilience in a region is to appoint teams that look at and coordinate actions under these 9 headings. And if we were to begin to think about food, and the things that, so how many people would be in a food support group, and what kind of meetings might they have? Well, I'm going to suggest that we might have 3. And it's not exclusive, so if more people want to come along to it, but I think the idea of the food support group is to help each individual find a place within this network. So yes, hello, my name's Stephen. I'd like to be involved in food support. So I'm going to come along to the food support hub, which might be 3 people, and they're going to say, okay, Steve, what part of the food support would you like to be active in? And you know what? I might like to be active in more than one area. So that's fine too. So the food support group might think about, it might think about growing plants. One of the things it's going to think about is growing plants. Because a lot of our food is plant-based. So we can then say, okay, so our first team that we're going to build in the food support group is going to be a team that's going to think about plants and plant resources. So, and look how the most important one obviously seems to go down to here. So from here we go to nurseries. We're going to create a plant nursery where we're going to replicate useful plants. That might be. So out of all the different things that we could do, we've now got a sense of priority. We need to think about food. And if we're going to start thinking about food, that starts with thinking about plants. And if we're going to start thinking about plants, let's start by having a nursery where we're going to now start germinating seeds or propagating plants that we have. We're going to start putting the resources that we need for seed germination and plant propagation. We're going to put them in that place. And it's going to be the responsibility of the people in the plant resource group. Once we started thinking about a nursery, we might think about plant collections. What's available? What can we go out and can we bring those together to help propagation? Where are seeds going to come from? Are there perhaps native species that we could cultivate from? Maybe we haven't got the ability to buy seeds, so we might look at see what other plants might be available. Are there any demonstration farms and gardens? That would be a good place to go. Can we build a relationship with them? So our food support group has now created a plant resources group, and that plant resources group has gone off to see a demonstration farm. They're going to speak to the government, voluntary agencies. They're going to see if there's anybody out there who can help, who have knowledge and perhaps that they could share. What books and publications are there? Maybe there are contractors and consultants out there that could help us. We've now got a team of people within food support that are thinking about what are the needs of the plant, what can we multiply up, how do we have seeds, what kinds of things do we have? Well, whilst that group is getting started and going through those kinds of questions and starting to bring together the resources that it needs, then a second group, food support group, is going to be formed around animals. Again, are the demonstration farms, the government departments, or voluntary agencies that we could go and get information from? Are there other native species collections around, or what resources do we have? Do we need to start a breeding and propagation center of our own? What publications are there of? What produce do we have? You can quickly see how within each group you could generate a set of activities that then starts to advance that area of the of food production. So here we've got a and again, the food support group, whoever's in that, can start to identify what they feel is important. It doesn't have to be the same as this, but this is how the kinds of things perhaps that might go on and you might want to think about. So pests and pest management. If we're growing food, we're probably going to have some challenges for sure. Do we know about biological controls? We talk about integrated pest management. It's a strategy. what suppliers, what other resources are out there? Could we create a checklist? Because if you remember, the first part of integrated pest management is identify the pests and identifies the problems, keep observing, and then slowly we can find out what our problems are. We can develop a integrated pest management scheme, and in between we can do, and whilst that's happening, we can do interventions to protect the plants that we need. So we've thought about plants and animals, we've thought about pests and pest management. So now we're going to have some production. As we start producing, how can we, so it's about food processing, so it's about drying, fermenting, storing, what equipment might we need, what other, what products, what has been produced. So we've got to catch and store that energy. And as food is being produced, we want to be able to come together and capture it and maintain its value. And then as we start to produce food is, we're going to think about how we're going to make that available to other people. Are we going to deliver it or have a retail outlet? Are we going to direct market? We're going to use local markets. Perhaps we might use some for barter in exchange for labor so that we can support our other functions. Do we need packaging? The easiest way to sell food is to sit at the roadside, perhaps, and explore other options. And maybe there's a function within food support around the planning. Say to think about support services. Where's our fencing going to come from, and how are we going to maintain that? Do we have infrastructure like glass houses and shade houses, or machinery and equipment? What about water supply, land planning services, and so forth? So you can kind of imagine how, I don't know, the author of this has said, this seems like this is a very powerful and logical way to go about organizing as a community. But why is it that people don't do it? And we don't think or operate in this way? And perhaps the reason is because the systems that we have in place are kind of good enough. We're kind of happy enough with how things are. But as if things start to be challenged and break down and need reorganizing, then that's when we start to think more in a strategic way. And I think the difference as well, this kind of model for thinking, is this is about a community coming together to resolve problems. And it's also a fair question to ask, well, why don't we do that already? Why don't we already think and behave like that as communities? It's easy, nice to draw a lovely picture, but the question being is, why aren't we doing this anyway? Communities could come together to support buildings, energy systems. We've got livelihoods. I actually can't read this. To blow. Oh, there we go. That's better. So livelihood support around, I think that says finance and recycling, other support services, trades and services, social support, the social support group. So remember, each group comes together to support that function within a community. So they might suggest that we set up a think tank, that we set up a series of meetings where people come together to problem solve and to build strategies. We might want to organize work groups who'd be available to go along and support and work with the other key support areas. We might want to set up introductory services. So if anybody wants to know and learn about how it is that we organize ourselves, that there is a support group to support that function. And I think that's the clever bit. So health support around maternity, gynecological issues, and so on. So, whoops. Okay. So that diagram has been done. Say, it was done by an Australian permaculture student based on just one paragraph out of Bill Mollison's designer's manual, which makes you kind of realize how much incredible information there is in there. And but I thought perhaps of all of the things that are in the book is okay. You can read the designer's manual and it tells you how to avert floods and trap water in landscapes and build productive systems and naturally cooled houses and blah, 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 all these amazing techniques and things. But how are we going to organize ourselves to do it? It's having the information's one thing, but then turning that into a strategy that actually leads to results. That's the hard bit. And I think that what we're looking at here, what we're seeing through this kind of breakdown is perhaps, I'm not saying it's like the ultimate model, this is absolutely perfect, but I think that it's giving us a sense of how we might go about it. Is you break down all of the different things that community does and you call them functions. Food, well, we had food and shelter and transport and health and information and socializing. These are essential functions. And if we're not in a sort of an organized top-down system, or we're having to reorganize from the bottom up, we have to make sure that we put these in place. And maybe it might just be that as the more organized the community is, so yes, we've got our local food support system in place. We know what we're able to achieve ourselves and we know what help we need. And if someone was to come along from the outside and say, hey guys, we can give you some support, we know where to direct that. Rather than, because we've now built our strategy and we've built an inclusive social system that invites everybody who wants to take part. So I've been mulling upon that thing for a while, that diagram and all its different constituent bits, and I think you could kind of redraw it for your own community, but I think those 9 headings are probably pretty close to the ones that perhaps we should be thinking about. So those are my thoughts, my contribution, just for now. I'd love to hear any thoughts or feedback or anything from you guys. So that would be really great. And then I'll talk a bit more about where perhaps we might be going with all of this. So Gerald, how about you? Could I put you on the spot first? Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, sure. And yeah, the organizational bioregional chart. I think that's the beauty with permaculture. Such illustrations or diagrams can be transposed or simply replicated to fit even into conventional organizational structures. And you find bits of pieces of work sometimes I do is to do with maybe organizations and compliance and all that. But you find organizations struggling to fit functions or duties and tasks within the environment, or as they do the work. Let's say they have a structure, but probably it's not well lined out. They don't know who is doing what and who is doing which function. So that alone can be broken down even to fit, or even to define the tiniest or the very minute details of who supports which function and at what point do they interlink with the rest of the organization. So really, even when you do that sort of translation or transformation, you can simply map, and it's detailed enough just by going through it. I think it's one of those pieces of information that I came across, and I've been actually utilizing it all the way. So
Thank you, Gerald. Yeah, it's great. Ella just had to say her apologies and has left. She has another meeting, and I was supposed to say Shanaz also sent her apologies. She is on grandma duty today, so she's not able to attend. But we'll be keeping in touch with the sessions.
yeah, so I've been communicating with the members. Probably the time shift has
Yes,
caused a few issues here and there, so we've missed out on a couple of them.
I know.
I've managed to jump on, but still that confusion.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's someone now. Andre. Faith, is there anything you'd like to share with us? I'm really happy you've joined us today. I don't know if don't let me put you on the spot. Did you find that interesting, and any thoughts? Or maybe not. Okay.
Steve,
Yes.
maybe I could say this this chart, if you look at it in its entirety, like it would look massive. But to colleagues on this call, you can zoom it down. Yeah, you can look at it in small bits, and you apply that. Yeah. So it goes back to looking at context. You don't need to look at it as in its whole or massive as it appears. Break it down, look at it to the little bits that apply to your circumstances or to your community, to your organization, or to your homestead, and then keep building onto that. Small and slow solutions, we say.
Yes. Yeah. So Faith says she finds it very interesting, and she's thanking us for being here. How are you there, Andre and friend? Welcome. I'm sorry the time shifted because the time changed here. It's a really confusing system.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are here. We still be here. We are so great.
Okay. Thank you. So we've just I'll give a summary of what we talked about because we have got to enter it. But Laura is asking would like to speak. Laura, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. And hi to everyone. My name is Laura Mwanguzi, a climate justice activist from Uganda. I am deeply sorry that I came in late because of the time shift and everything. But with what I saw, this is what I have to say about the charts that Steve shown to us. Well, I think that these chats can actually help to raise awareness about permaculture, especially among the youth. This is one of the ways we can involve more youth. And also, we are able to make efforts with this because while we're laying such strategies, we need to make sure that there are efforts that are being made out of this. With where I come from, there is prolonged drought due to the climate crisis. But I believe that if we are able to teach people about permaculture, the prolonged droughts will not be able to treat them the way they treat them now. For example, food insecurity, because right now people will know how to grow their own food. They will know how to preserve their own food because permaculture is a sustainable practice. And I believe that if we continue with this, it helps ensure a green future by instilling eco-friendly habits in the people around our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that contribution. Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you for that contribution.
Okay.
Yes, and we talked about change from edges, and last week we talked about the edge between older and younger, and how important it is to have different voices that connect with different sections of the population, and how vital it is to engage with the youth who, if you like, who are moving in, are going to shape. As they grow up, they will be growing into this kind of changed world, and there's the importance of empowerment and inclusivity there is it can't be understated. I think, yes, we have to create a movement through action, and that those actions then draw in the participation of other people. I think this is our way of, I think this is what we're proposing. Yes, Andrew, please. Andre.
Yeah, I wanted to add something about Laura said about permaculture. As you know, we are here in the camp as our refugees. Most of the refugees are not informed about permaculture. They are not trained. So when we could organize some trainings and train them about permaculture, because here there is food insecurity here in the camp. So people need to be trained about permaculture and those principles about permaculture principles and the other thing. Not only permaculture based on cultivating gardens, but permaculture is a big project. So we need to train people. That's why I wanted to add about Laura said. Yeah.
Steve, sorry, I failed to put up my hand. Yeah, if I could emphasize the points from both Laura and then Andre, this entire chart, sorry, probably Andre could, and the colleague may not have seen it, is looking at how probably when you draw it back to the principles, how do you do those integrations? Integrate rather than segregate. How do you do those integrations, but also do them in a meaningful way? Otherwise, it's very easy. There is what people call to create organized chaos. You bring together a group, yes, you're integrating or you're bringing together functions, but how do you bring them together in a way that is going to be productive, in a way that is not going to cause chaos, but rather support progressiveness or support actively, achieving the visions or the functions. Yeah. So as we look at it, and if we look back at probably the overall theme of leadership, part of your role as a leader is to determine, okay, yes, we have our group, we have our Kakuma group, we have our school outreach group. How do we meaningfully work out either interactions, or how do we correlate or interact with others, but also having specific items to manage or to handle or to achieve? Over to you, Steve.
I'm thinking about that function of information sharing. So and maybe in some way that's the start point of the process, because as what our friends in Kakuma are saying is, yeah, where does that leadership come from? How do we involve people into permaculture? And at some point we've got to be able to say, communicate to the community that there's a way in, there's a start point. And from there, it's like, so permaculture, in a really, really simple way, is about how I meet my needs. And so everyone's interested in that. It's about how you, pointing the finger, how are you going to eat? How are you going to meet your needs? And think about what your needs are, and realize you have to build strategies to meet your needs. Well, the next bit of permaculture is, okay, so one way we do that is by not being selfish, by setting limits and investing the surplus. Investing the surplus into what? Into other people, into building long-term plans and strategies which enable us then to improve our situation. So through that information hub, perhaps we might be able to draw people in and saying, you have the opportunity, you are welcome to come into this permaculture mindset. And the step one is thinking about your needs. Step two is then, I guess, learning the permaculture ideas so that we can take part. And that needs to link to action very quickly, because people have real, immediate and pressing needs. So just thinking out loud, really, but it's a very interesting approach. And obviously you're in a very real situation. So you'll have to help us think about what would your ideas be to build a strategy to connect with other people in Kakuma around these themes? Do you have any? I'd be so interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, brother Steve, as we are in CAM, we are here as teachers. We are here to get knowledge and to go and teach us in the community. So we have to be trained first, and then to organize some trainings for those who are not here. So after getting the knowledge, like you teach us, we have to go back in the community and teach others. So the way that we can succeed on it is after getting the knowledge and go in the community, teach others in the community, like trainings. So we have to do trainings. We have to have trainings with those in the community. So maybe so that they can get knowledge about permaculture, because they don't know.
I think I should add something a little about this. For us, getting knowledge from they always say that if you have knowledge and you never apply that knowledge, so it's being called stupid knowledge. But having knowledge and inspiring others and the benefit of that knowledge, transforming the community at large, and bringing problems together, and we get a route to solve that problems. I think that's a great. It will be a great idea, solving our own problems at some point. And we getting knowledge from here. We are going to will inspire community on goodness of permaculture and food insecurity. Like how are we going to change their living standard? And maybe the people that whom we are going to train at some point, they are also going to train others, and we will at some point we are going to make an inspiration of a big community to come up with the same knowledge of overcoming shortage of food insecurities and so on. So I think we'll do our best to transform the community and society at large.
Thank you very much for that. So meanwhile, I'm trying to achieve the same thing, but from where I am and within my community. And yeah, anyway, which we're trying to start with food growing and livelihood
So
support. Laura.
before we move on, could I contribute to what they said? Gerald asked about how can we be good leaders and how can we raise awareness about permaculture the right way. And this is to answer your question, Gerald. While we are here, we are all learning and we are all leaders in progress. And while whichever project, permaculture project that you're handling, this is where we are laying ground and strategy. Learn from Steve, for he is our senior right now, okay? Look at him and the techniques that he uses in his leadership as he leads us in this entire project. Take that exact knowledge to the people that you are going to train in your community, or even add on more that you can. And even to the people in the camp, you can actually do the same, and I can do the same for the youth. Because here we have a senior who is Steve that is actually training and raising leaders. We are actually leaders in progress when it comes to the permaculture sector. Also, when it comes to raising awareness, one of the ways you can quickly do it is through media, the right utilization of media. I'm sure all of us here have gadgets and we have access to Facebook, to X, to Instagram, and all social media platforms. So we can be able to contribute and raise awareness about permaculture to our friends, to our peers, communities, and so much more through media. Also to the people that we can speak to, it does not really have to take like 7 hours, 5 hours, even the 15 minutes you have with someone from your community. Have a constructive dialogue with them about permaculture. Tell them, you know what, I know about this. I'm sure I can help you in such a way. Now that is a leader. Thank you.
Yes. Sorry for interrupting you, Brother Steve. As Madam Laura said, we are the leaders and we have to show in the community as we are the sure leaders. So when you have ideas and we don't have something to succeed in the idea that you have, so those are the challenges that we are facing, but we have to succeed the creativity, the innovation that we have. So we have creativity, we have ideas, but sometimes we lose control when we are in, like when we want to organize a training, because all those things become when you don't have enough capital or tools or seeds, you can't succeed on permaculture. So for those who want to grow food, if you don't have seeds, you can't succeed. If you don't have tools, you can't succeed. But we are here to get knowledge. After getting the knowledge, we apply. You apply it in the community. So that I wanted to add to Madam Laura said.
Okay, as we hold on for Steve.
Yeah, please, Daryl. Sorry, I got distracted. Were you going to say something? Please do.
No, it was just briefly to say that it's really good to hear the notion that we're not thinking about leaders or in different capacities, but each and every one of us is a leader. And don't wait for anyone to say, oh, I'm leading on this. Yeah.
Yes.
In the current times, you're a leader, and it will take a collection of leaders to get things done. Don't wait for anyone else to say, this will be done by so and so. Yeah, over to you, Steve. Just wanted to bring that in as well.
Thank you. I think, yeah, we lead through actions, and by setting something in motion. I'm just showing a few photos. This was just what I was doing this morning. Is over the last 3 years, I've been building a garden on a local farm, and I've been working very closely to build a relationship and a friendship with the farm, and I do teaching there, and I bring volunteers there, and then they've allowed me to cultivate part of the land, and they also allow me to have access to some of the resources of the farm, like animal manures and tools and so forth. And you can see slowly we're developing our garden, and it's designed to look good and look interesting, and to add value to the farm. The pictures at the beginning of, they have a little farm shop, and customers come and they make things like meat pies and so forth, and customers come and buy things in the shop, and they see the garden, and that deepens their interest, and that's a chance for us to interact with those public and say, to hopefully to try and involve them, engage them in a dialogue around permaculture or around our community garden, and to create a way in so that people can become involved in, if you like, local food support. So there we have some nice pictures of the garden. Within the farm, there are places where we can sit and meet with people and chat and talk. And then also is within our community here, we're in a little village where I live, we also have, we call it an allotment. It's a bit of shared land that by negotiation we're allowed to cultivate that. We pay a small fee each year, and in return you can see we have access to the polytunnel and to other resources. And that's back at the farm again.
It seems it's not sharing. Probably, yeah, just showing your drives and your storage places.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe you can share again.
I'll try again.
Actual...
Share scheme.
You can share the actual.
Can you see that now?
No. What you do, you share the actual player, like if you're using photo viewer or
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. How's that?
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. Okay. So, yeah, I just wanted. So I think this, what I'm saying is, this is sort of within the context of what the resources that I have to hand. I'm growing food in an inclusive way. I'm working with the local, say our allotment, and I'm working with a local farm. So this is our local allotment, and then this farm, which is just a few miles away, to create a visible to create an initiative that people can see and learn from, and hopefully be inspired to then come and take part. And that's what I mean, I think, by leading through action. So rather than me standing on the corner going, I think we should all start a garden, I've started that process. And I drew in a support group exactly the same way as we talked about in the session, of people from the farm, and people who said they wanted to help, and other students who wanted to help me plan it. And through that process, we were actually able to set in motion a community growing space. And I'm doing some growing here locally in the village, but because I need more space, I've also got this friendship with the farm, so I can take my plants there and extend it. And that's just a small example, I guess, of how I'm trying to apply these ideas into my own world and my own community, because we're also starting to experience all sorts of, of food insecurity or financial challenges and so forth. So, yeah, that was what I really wanted to say today, was this thing about the 9 areas of support, to think about leadership by example, and to create leadership in a way in which it's inviting participation and empowering people through information sharing and delegation, and always using this permaculture framework to keep us, if you like, on track. Okay, anybody have? I'm going to pause there. I'm going to stop there because we've used our time up, and I have another meeting coming up. But we'll pick up on this next week, and I think specifically, I want to think about you guys in Kakuma, how that process of leadership, I think you've got a good handle on it. But thinking about exactly what support you need to achieve that. Any closing thoughts from anyone else? I've spoken plenty enough. I thank everyone for your participation. And any closing thoughts, perhaps things that we can work on during the week and bring up next week as well. So I'm happy for, yeah. It's Andre, yeah.
No, as if there is no time, you have another meeting, we can talk about it on the coming week. But I wanted to ask, because you have said that we will be talking on today meeting about the project that I have been sending to you last week. So that was
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, you sent me those words last week, and I posted them on the website, but we haven't talked about it, and I did mean us to do that, so I'm really sorry. But I can see that you have a clear, I mean, very much in line with the diagram that we've just looked at. You have a clear set of strategies. Now, within that, you've identified the costs of what you've done, and so we need to then build a plan. So you've actually done the first part, is you've figured out what it is that you need. Now, I don't know, I'm not a fundraiser. I don't know the magic formula of how to win resources. But what I am doing is speaking to people who do. And I've asked for help through the Permaculture Association and through an organization that I used to work with, environmental organization. Because if we've got a good enough story out there, which I think we have, then it needs to win support. So you've very much done, I congratulate you on that. You've very much done that first step, and we need to rise to that and all move together. And I'm hoping that we'll be getting ideas coming from other quarters as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Gerald and Laura, I'll give you a chance to sign off and say a few things.
Okay, I'll go first. Thanks everyone, and thanks Steve. It's always brilliant and refreshing to be on the sessions. And yes, let's keep, as our emphasis is always small and slow solutions. Start wherever you are you are a leader. You're not waiting for anyone else to come and take on the leadership. So if it's awareness, if it's doing any sort of active involvement, please take it on. We understand, and wherever we are, resources will always be limited. There is no single point that you will have them in plenty. So with whichever resources you have, it may not be necessarily financial. You could be having your energy, you could be having your social connections, or even just the good environment and the good weather. Please utilize those as resources, as probably the financials could chip in at any point. Well done, and great to have everyone here. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Steve. I would like to conclude by saying that for everyone here, let us all leave this meeting knowing that we need to carry an intentional mindset. We need to have an intentional mindset towards this, towards permaculture. Let us be open to new knowledge, because we learn every day, and on how best we can actually utilize this. Lastly, let's keep united, because we are all of a same cause. And to make this work, we should keep united.
Absolutely, Laura. We only achieve things by working together and by finding unity and using permaculture to bind us together. And when I look at you, Andre, and your colleague there, I see people who are leading in their community. You're initiating and you're pressing and you're asking the key questions. You're building a strategy. This is really great. And I hope that whatever we can do here is going to help fan the flames to, to drive you forward in your ambitions. And permaculture is a unifying methodology that draws together. Yeah. So thank you, everybody. And we've got lots to think about, and I will put these thoughts together for next week. And we will think more as well about how we can support each other in our ambitions. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.